Hello, welcome to the Spark Accounting Solutions show. I'm Jenny Q, and I'm joined today by Julie Babcock-Hyde. Julie is the founder and CEO of Spark Accounting Solutions. She's also a CPA, CFM. Julie, I can never remember all your designations. QuickBooks Pro Advisor, Profit First Professional, and I know there's so much more.
That's true. But I think the most important thing for today's topic
Yes.
is that I was also a single mom for many years.
Yes.
And so today's topic is near and dear to my heart because I was a single mom until my daughter was 17 and have always been working or running a business or both a lot of times. And so I wanted to share some tips around that. And I'm glad you're here today too, because I think you've got some experience with this as well.
I've done a little bit of the single mom thing as well. And it is a totally different dynamic. And there are some things to navigate through. And I love that you're doing this because, just with our society, we've kind of, we're not with our nuclear family anymore, right?
And things have changed a lot.
Mm-hmm. So we need other women to help us and say, hey, you have this situation, here's how you do this. You have this situation, here's how you do this. And so, what we're going to talk about today, we are coming from the single mom perspective, but also as a business consultant. So,
yeah, well, and let's be honest, most of these tips will apply to any moms, any dads, single dads, anybody that's working, grandparents that are running a business and have their grandkids. Anybody that's parenting, these tips will apply to, but single moms are near and dear to my heart.
Yes, for sure. For sure. So why don't we jump right in?
Perfect.
The first one is don't be afraid to say no to a client. That sounds very scary when you have to put food on the table for your littles.
Absolutely. I think the beauty of being a small business owner is that we get to set what we want, what the rules are of operation for our business. And if that means we want to have Fridays off, or if that means we're only available from 10 to 4, or that means we're available from 10 to 2, and then we do some work in the middle of the night after the littles go to bed, we need to be really clear about what that is. Because if you're trying to be everything to everyone all the time, there's no way you're going to be successful because you just can't pull it off. So really figure out what those boundaries are and kind of trust in the universe that that when you say no to something that's not a good fit for you, there's plenty of other fish in the sea for potential clients that you can go ahead and pick one up. But you also have some opportunities to use your entrepreneurial skills to be creative and come up with some creative problem solving. A lot of people, especially when they start out their business, think that they have to do everything themselves. But if you get an opportunity, there's no reason that you can't find somebody else in your industry that's also looking to grow their business that maybe has more flexibility for the particular project that you've been offered, or maybe specializes in this potential client. And so you can really look at building partnerships and finding ways to work together with other people so that you maybe don't have to say no to all the projects. You still get that revenue in. Maybe you share it with somebody else who could use the revenue as well.
What would that look like? Give us an example, either that you've done or you've seen your clients do. What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the accounting world, it's not unusual to have another person that you subcontract work to. And sometimes you'll pay like a percentage of revenue. Sometimes you'll pay an hourly rate, but you share in that job and say, you know what, I can't do that right now, but I've got help. So I can accept that project and get it done. Another example is maybe a project is, 4 different pieces, 3 of which you specialize in and 1 of which your friend does. And so you can contract out that piece of it and still deliver that, still generate the revenue, and find a way to get a win for the client and a win for you and a win for somebody else in your network.
Very good. Very good. I love that creative, problem solving.
Yeah. And we know that single moms are good at that.
You have to be to survive.
Exactly. Yes. For sure.
Very good. Okay, so let's go to number 2. Know the difference between rubber balls and crystal balls.
So one of my, this is probably phrased in my own words and not exactly the way that it was explained to me. But Brad Smith, who's the CEO of Intuit, when he talks about work-life balance, talks about evaluating the moments in your life and figuring out whether they're rubber balls or crystal balls. So rubber balls, if you drop one, it's going to bounce back. Nothing's going to be ruined. A crystal ball, if you drop it, it's going to break and it's going to be ruined. And so when you're evaluating what moments you are going to participate in your family, in the rest of the world, you have to look at those things and say, basically, how important is it that I'm really there today? So let's say you've got a kiddo that's playing football and they have 2 games every single week. It's probably a rubber ball if you miss one of those games. But if it's the championship, it's probably a crystal ball.
I love that analogy. That's so good. One of the things that I used when raising my kids was if I could hire someone else to do that task, then it went to the bottom of the list. That doesn't necessarily mean that I would hire someone to do that task, but there are certain tasks that we have in our day that only a parent can do, only mom can do. And
Right.
then we have those that could be hired out. So, for example, laundry, mopping the floor, right? Vacuuming. It wouldn't be that I would necessarily hire someone so I'd have laundry stacking up. But if I had to choose between that or going to the football game, right? Or reading the bedtime story, then I would choose what I couldn't hire out.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it too.
Yeah.
It's, those things that if we don't do it, our kids are going to remember it. Our kids are going to remember it later in life that you weren't there. You don't want to miss a wedding. You don't want to miss, maybe you can miss the rehearsal for the ballet recital, but you probably better not miss the ballet recital.
Sure.
But really evaluating those and saying, how important is this? And is this going to really hurt somebody's feelings if I'm not there this one time?
And I want to throw in here too, because I remember the guilt that would come from missing. You know what? If you can't make it, then don't make it and don't feel guilty about it, because the guilt is just wasted emotion. Like you're just going to go into a downward spiral with that one.
Absolutely. And, I think for all of us, if we think back to our own childhood and say, okay, did something like this happen in my childhood? How many football games were my parents actually at? And if you think back and you realize you can't remember, that's a good clue that it may not be as important as you're feeling that weight of guilt on
Yes,
you.
so much. And I had a thought and then I just lost it. So let's go on. But I would like to reserve the right to come back to it if it comes back.
Perfect. Yes. Let's
Okay. Okay. So number 3 is use mad money skills in your business. The same ones that you use to operate your family.
Let's be honest. Yeah. As single moms, like when I was a single mom, I was always trying to figure out how to get the best deal for things. I was always working on the budget to make sure we were going to have enough money for everything. My daughter was in 4-H. And so it was always like, okay, we have to travel to this fair on the other side of state. How much money do we need for that? How much are the entrance fees? You're always budgeting and planning and trying to look for deals. And there's a lot of free resources available as well. And as a single mom, I usually knew where most of those free resources were, whether it was, hey, we're going down to the kite festival at the park, which is free, because it's a fun way to entertain ourselves, or whether it was, like we've got a couple businesses in town here that actually give away oil changes to single moms.
Mm.
And so I always tried to know where those different types of services and discounts were available for me as a single mom. But we can apply those same things to our business. There are tons of free training available for small business owners, whether it's from the SCORE or from the SBA, or free webinars, or Facebook Lives like this. There's a lot of different things you can do to get free training for your business. but there's also a lot of resources, and you know how to find coupons, and you know how to find deals, and you know how to be creative and do whatever you need to do with a little bit less money. And you want to take those same exact skills that you're using to make things work financially at your household and make them work for the business.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Maybe not so easy to implement, but it makes perfect sense.
No, and I think as moms, we have a tendency to be like really creative problem solvers.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we use those same skills in trying to figure out how we take care of things financially, how do we find resources to help us get where we need to go? Use those same research skills that you do to find the kite festival as you do to find resources for your business.
So good. Where would you start with that? Where would you start? Is it a Google search? Is it reaching out to
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of towns have a women's business center.
Okay.
Most places have SCORE.
Mm-hmm.
SCORE is also online, and that's volunteer. That's volunteers that actually are helping small businesses succeed.
Oh,
And
okay.
they've got online trainings as well. But absolutely Google searches. So if you know that you need to figure out WordPress so you can get your website up, I hate to say it, but there's a lot of things that you could go to YouTube and get some help with.
Yeah, totally.
There's a lot of expertise out there that people are sharing for free. There's a lot of things that you can do yourself, but you always have to make wise decisions about what's the right thing for you to do yourself and when it's time to get help.
Sure. That makes perfect sense. That's good. Good. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. So number 4 is be absolutely clear about time management.
Yes. There is no way to get everything done.
Right.
There's just no way to get everything done. And so, and I say that for anything, because I always have a list of, I don't know how many things on my to-do list that get bumped down. And eventually I go, you know what, I'm never going to do that. Cross it off the list. But so one of the things I really encourage single moms to do, especially, is really think about when they are working at their peak. And when they are operating at their peak, whether it's their peak creative time or their peak client delivery time or whatever those are, find those times on your calendar and make sure you have those available for, your business during those times. If you need to create content and your peak creative time is at midnight, make sure you take some time occasionally at midnight to create some content, because that's when you're going to do it best.
Right.
If you are, best working with clients at, 2 to 4 in the afternoon, make sure you have that time blocked out and plan everything really strategically around your peak performance times. Another tip I've got that I never really felt great about as a parent, but as I got older and became more accepting of the fact that it was a good thing instead of a bad thing. I hated when I was younger, actually putting time on my calendar for kid activities. Did you ever feel guilty? Did you ever feel guilty being like, okay, I need to put game night on the calendar tonight because I want to make sure it happens. And I keep forgetting to do this with the kids.
I actually did not feel guilty about that, because then what it did was it relaxed my thinking so that I knew that it was going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And for me, I've always thought like, when I was younger, I was like, you have to schedule your kids in your calendar. They're so, they're an afterthought, and you have to get them on your calendar so you don't forget about them. But later I really came to understand that it's not about them being an afterthought. It's about them being a priority.
Yes.
And getting it on your calendar up front and knowing that you've got that time to spend with your kids. And it does give you some freedom to say, okay, I'm working really hard today and tomorrow's a play day with the kids.
Yes. I love that. Well, one of the things that I did very similar to what you're saying is I had a routine every night was something different that I knew that the kids could depend on, that I could depend on. And it was in the calendar. So like, for example, the Tuesday night was half price Happy Meals. So every Tuesday night we would go through McDonald's drive-thru. I'd pick them up from work. We'd go through McDonald's drive-thru. Everybody was happy. We knew that was going to happen. Every Friday night was movie and pizza night. So we knew that was going to happen. And every Thursday night was my night to go out with my friends. So they knew that every Thursday night they were going to have a sitter, and, I was going to go out, and I knew I had me time. I think that's really critical. Yes. To schedule that in as a single mom, single parent, well, anybody really. But I think that as moms, we feel like I can't schedule time for me because it's taking away from the kids. And that's where what you're talking about becomes so valuable. You know that you're not really taking time away from the kids. You are feeding yourself, nourishing yourself, regenerating so that you're a better mom when you do come back for the Friday night movie night.
Absolutely. And I think like you're absolutely right. It's really important to get that on the calendar, whether that's getting to a yoga class or whether that's getting up an hour earlier so you get your workout in. Whatever it is, make sure you do have some of that time in there for you, because being an entrepreneur is challenging. It's hard work. Being a mom is challenging and it's hard work. Being a single mom is even harder, I would say. And so just making sure you have time to, fill up your own gas tank. Yes. is critical.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. And we tend to not think about it until we're completely drained and things are falling apart. So be proactive with it, right?
Absolutely.
Nice. Okay. All right. And number 5 is don't be afraid to ask for help or use shortcuts. This is good.
So let's go back to that whole guilt thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of moms feel guilty when they ask for help or when they use shortcuts. So I want to talk about both of those.
Good.
When you are a single parent, it is so important to have a support network around you. A lot of single parents still have, the other parent involved. Some don't. But trying to keep that relationship friendly so that if there are times that you need help, that's great. It's not an option for everybody. And so then you have to start looking at where else can you get support and help. And so some of my favorite tips around that are, number 1, know who the nurses that come to your house when you have sick kids are. There's actual businesses for that. It may not be cheap, but if you've got a big pitch that you need to do to a new customer one day, you're going to want that number.
I'm going through that right now with my new puppy. Yes. I have a whole list of people that when I have to do, work with a client or whatever, that I have someone who can watch the puppy because she's a little baby, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a good one. Another one I like to encourage people, like if you are involved in church, school activities, single mom groups, develop some relationships there. Find people that are near to you. Find people that are maybe have kids at the same school as you, so that if you do have something come up one day and need to get, your kiddo a ride home from school, you can call that other mom or dad that is already going to be there and say, hey, could you please pick up my kiddo tonight? I can be there at 4:30. I just need 30 minutes and I'm running late. So having that help is great. Another one to think about is if you have retired, retired grandmas in your neighborhood. Some of those might be really good help too, because they've been through it. They know what it's like to be a mom, and they have absolutely zero issues with having a smiling child come in their house for 30 minutes after school while you've been delayed. So think about what those resources are, and don't be afraid to ask for help. And you don't just have to think about people. And so maybe your help, maybe you need to hire a housekeeper. Maybe you need to hire a dog walker. Maybe you brought up dogs, so I'm going to go down the dog road. Maybe you need to hire somebody to pick up dog poop in your backyard. Maybe you need to hire a tutor because you're too tired in the evenings to really work well with your kiddo to help them with their homework.
Or their math is above your comprehension level.
Yeah, or you don't get Common Core math. Yeah, exactly. Whatever it is, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And along that same lines, because I do think people feel guilty for asking for help, but I also feel like a lot of people feel guilty for taking shortcuts. And let me explain what I mean by that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We live in this world where we've got a whole bunch of picture perfect dinners and picture perfect Halloween costumes and everything else sitting all over social media, right?
Yeah,
And
totally.
so it's really easy to be like, "Oh my gosh, I made macaroni and cheese and salad out of a bag for dinner tonight and I feel really guilty about it." Um but those kind of shortcuts are okay. Your kids are fed. They got some carbs, they got some protein, they got some vegetables in them. It's not the end of the world. It's also not the end of the world if you don't make a homemade Halloween costume every year.
So good. This is
There are
such good
so
advice.
there are so many people that are not. You know what? For every homemade princess costume that shows up, there's also the ghost in the sheet. You know what I'm talking about. The kid who came and said, "I don't have a Halloween costume." They said, "Hold on. Let me go
Yes,
grab you
for
one out
sure.
of the closet."
For
Here you
sure.
go. And so don't be afraid to take those shortcuts. You don't need to bring homemade cookies when it's your day to do snack day. You don't need to make a big fancy lunch in a fancy bento box because somebody else is doing it on Pinterest. You don't need to do that. You just need to put healthy food in your kids. You need to be there for them. I'll be honest with you and tell you, for snack day at my school, I don't remember a single snack that my parents ever brought. Do you remember that? Is that
No,
something you were ever traumatized
no.
by because they showed up
I
with the wrong kind of cookies?
no, but I do remember this is just going way off topic. I do remember some really delicious yet unhealthy lunches that I would be allowed to take, but I lived.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, there's battles you want to fight, there's battles you don't want to fight with your kids around food, and there's things that like matter, and there's things that don't matter. And I would say some of these, if we go back to the rubber ball and crystal ball analogy, um, stopping at Albertsons and buying a bag of chocolate chip cookies for snack day is probably not going to be the end of the world.
Probably not. And I remember the first time, and in fact, Julie, there's a little bit of feedback, and I wonder if you have an extra window open or if you have uh, your volume is turned up a little bit.
I'll try turning volume
Okay,
down.
perfect. Thank you. You got to love live video, right? Troubleshoot right
Absolutely.
in the middle of it. Yeah.
We'll
But
try that.
okay, try that. So I remember that did help a little bit. Perfect. Thank you. I remember the first time that I broke tradition and did a shortcut. And there was guilt, but guess what? It ended up being one of the kids' favorite traditions. And what that is, it was called snack attack dinner because I was like exhausted and I knew I had to get food in them. So I had to come up with a fun name for it, like it was intended. And so I took out paper plates and I just grabbed a handful of this, a handful of that, a handful of this, and snack attack dinner. And so that became a favorite. They started to beg for it. And then I could kind of sneak in, some grapes or some, whatever. But the first snack attack dinner, I still remember it. That's how big it was for me to take a shortcut. But
Yeah.
it was popcorn and oatmeal cookies. Like I was like, here, just please eat this and be happy. And they were elated. They were delighted, and they all are
And they
functioning
all lived
healthy
and they
adults.
all
Yeah.
turned out to be
Mm-hmm.
responsible adults, right?
Yeah. Yes.
It's amazing the things that we don't have to be perfect.
Right.
And and I think that's the really important thing to remember is that any parent does not have to be perfect. You just have to do your best. And when you're looking at the idea of work-life balance, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know that it actually exists all the time.
Mm-mm.
But I will say, sometimes work is more, sometimes kiddos are more. But ultimately, you just want to make sure your kids know that you love them and you want to make sure you're making a living. And I want to make one other comment around that,
Yes.
because I think I have seen situations where new single moms, so people that have gotten divorced that have been running a business, when they look at the financial reality of running their business
Mm-hmm.
and trying to raise their kids, they may end up deciding to get a job. And I just want to say that's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with that. With the cost of health insurance right now, and my first health insurance plan for my daughter and I was less than $100 a month. And so it's not, that is not a reality
No,
anymore.
it is not.
It is not a reality anymore. And so I just want to say that, going back to this whole guilt thing, um, if you love your business and you can make a good living doing it, do it. You can do it. But if you decide that it's a better choice to get a job, don't feel guilty for doing what's best for you and your family, whatever that is.
I just want to
Whether
put it.
that's, yeah, whether
I just
that's
want to
running
put
your
a,
business or getting a job, take care of
yeah.
yourself.
Yeah, I want to put a big exclamation point, underline, highlight, there's no right way to parent. There's no right way to single parent. It's what's working for you right now. And if you do decide to get a job, it's not a failure. It's a new decision with new information and a new situation.
And it may not be a permanent decision either.
Right. Right.
You don't have to, taking a job is not a lifelong commitment either. And so that's just the other point that I want to make around this situation, is that don't feel like a failure if you decide to choose something different that's going to work better for you.
That is so good. What comes to mind when we're talking about how to prioritize? A study was done where they found out what was the most important time to be with your child. And when possible, throughout the day, the most important times to be with your child are during the transitions. So going to school, coming home from school, going to bed, waking up, right? Now, there's no way you can do 100% of that. It's impossible. But what if you said, you know what? I'm going to do the best I can today, right?
Absolutely.
Right. And be with them on those transitions. And then you can let go of all the other things that you think are vital. If they're I love what you said. If they're getting cared for by someone and they're eating food,
yeah,
you win.
Yeah, exactly. Ultimately, it doesn't have to be perfect. If you're going down the entrepreneurial journey, it's hard work. It is absolutely hard work. So, it's hard work to be a mom. It's hard work to be an entrepreneur. And you want to really set your schedule, know what your limits are, personally, professionally. Get other people to help you, whether that's people to help with the kiddos, whether that's people to help with projects so you can generate more revenue. Get that support network around you, and let yourself not be perfect. It's okay.
I love it. So good, Julie. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today. Really good tips.
Perfect. Well, thank you for joining me and chipping in some tips.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. And if you're watching this live or on the replay and you know a single mom who runs her own business, or really any single mom, share this video with them, because I think that Julie shared some stuff that will really help them maybe alleviate some stress and some guilt for sure. Yay.
Absolutely.
All right. Take care. Next time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.